For years now, Trump and many in the MAGA movement have speculated that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered to protect rich and powerful men he was blackmailing. But on July the 7th, Trump's administration released a 2-page memo concluding that there was no secret client list, no evidence he was murdered. The result of this was uproar in MAGA world.
Where did that whole case go? Where did all the files go? They just went nowhere? No one even believes that.
This stinks. This just reeks.
Something is horribly wrong here.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
In reaction, Donald Trump tried to get everyone, including his supporters, to move on from the story.
Yeah, sure. If I
could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
But then something odd happened. His supporters ignored him.
I can't reconcile this Donald Trump with the Trump that we're seeing right now, the Trump that is gaslighting the public right now.
This is the #1 motivating issue for the base.
There is something there, and it's being covered up, and the president blessed it.
We are not falling to Jedi mind tricks and gaslighting.
This was odd. For years, Trump has broken promises and lied, to everyone but also to his base. Apparently he'd get Mexico to pay for the wall, bring back the coal industry, and he wouldn't cut Medicaid. And yet Trump has always seemed able to keep the support of his people. Even when he bombed Iran in the face of MAGA opposition, support for action rocketed up 30 percentage points amongst Republicans once he'd made his position clear. Often it seemed like MAGA is less of a political movement than a personality cult.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
But now Trump seems to have lost some of his control. This is strange. What is it about this issue which is so different to all the other things that might have lost him support? What's so different about Epstein? In this video, I want to explore that question and share 3 reasons why Trump is having trouble. Doing so also lets us look at the internal contradictions of Trump's politics and understand what the future holds for MAGA's political power. This video is sponsored by Ground News. More on that in a moment. I guess we need to start by figuring out what's really happened here. One scenario is that the Trump administration came in thinking there might be something going on, but found out there wasn't. Epstein wasn't blackmailing, wasn't murdered, and there's nothing more that can be released without hurting the victims or ruining a future trial. They've looked into it and there's nothing to see. If this is the case though, then there's been some incredible stupidity going on. First, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has spent months hyping up what was going to be revealed.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
There are tens of thousands of videos.
I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released.
In February, she even invited MAGA influencers to pose with pictures saying Epstein Files Phase 1, with a promise of more to come later. But now the story is she was mistaken about there being a list, and the tens of thousands of videos had nothing useful in them. In other words, she wasn't covering up anything, she was just a bit bad at her job, not really understanding what was on her desk or not. While this might sound suspicious, I actually think this is very plausible if you consider that Trump has hired people mainly for their loyalty rather than their competence. Another example of stupidity is Trump's efforts to call it all a hoax.
I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden,
So let me get this straight. According to Trump, all the top Democrats got together and said, let's create some fake files that destroy Trump's political career. They don't ever use them. They let Trump get elected, don't use them. Let Trump get elected again, still don't use them. And then once he's the president, hope he releases the files without ever looking at them.
Of course, his staff could have told him that this defense was never going to work, but presumably they're so nervous of seeming disloyal, no one said anything. Just like they were slow to tell Trump Elon Musk's Doge was a stupid idea and would backfire, and his approach to the tariffs would hurt the economy. It's all an example of what we might call authoritarian brain rot, where government competence is sidelined in favour of loyalty to the leader. Another factor in this brain rot is MAGA's media ecosystem. So full of propaganda and half-truths, administration people don't really understand what's going on. One particular example of this is Pam Bondi not realising her boss had long not been keen on the Epstein files being released.
The reason it's sort of a Mandela effect that he campaigned on the idea of releasing the Epstein files is because Fox News released a deceptively edited clip.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
And that's the part most of us saw. Of course, later, people found out that the full clip showed him saying basically the opposite.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
Critical media might be annoying for governments, but replacing it with propaganda makes those same governments more stupid. Trump is an authoritarian, so doesn't care about this, of course. More interested in ending criticism. Even phoning people like Charlie Kirk, making them go from this.
I think the DOJ should immediately move to unseal all the Epstein documents in the Southern District of New York.
To this.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration.
And by Tuesday, Fox News had ceased all mentions of Epstein altogether. While this effort to kill the story failed, you can still see differences in the way left and right are covering the story. For example, if we click here on the left-wing sources of news, we can see the reporting on the letter Trump apparently wrote to Epstein saying, "May every day be another wonderful secret." But click on the right-wing sources and you have the Trump line about how it was all fake and made up. This service is called Ground News, an app and website designed to bring left and right-wing sources of news together so you can see all the angles. It tells you bias distribution, ownership, and factuality ratings of all the sources reporting a story. There's also a feature called Blind Spot, where you can see the stories that are being underreported by either left or right. I genuinely find this very useful because, as someone who's trying to make arguments, it's very hard to do that if you don't understand the opposite point of view. I think Ground News is worth checking out. They're non-partisan, and there's a good write-up on the site explaining their methodology. Thanks to them for supporting these videos, and you can go to ground.news/Müller or use the QR code to subscribe and get 40% off the Vantage plan. Okay, so that's one reason, authoritarian brain rot. There is also a deeper reason why Trump is struggling with his supporters on this story, and it's to do with the way conspiracy theories have been fundamental to Trump's politics from the beginning.
In just a few short weeks, Donald Trump's stance on where President Obama was born has, well, evolved. From this...
The reason I have a little doubt, just a little, it's because he grew up and nobody knew him.
To this...
I want him to show his birth certificate.
To this...
I'm saying it's a real possibility, much greater than I thought 2 or 3 weeks ago. Then he has pulled one of the great cons in the history of politics.
In those same 3 weeks, Trump's poll numbers have gone from this to this, nearly doubling in less than a month.
Over time, Trump has supported or flirted with everything from vaccines causing autism, Pizzagate and QAnon, a genocide against white South African farmers, Biden's autopen, and many, many others. And Epstein conspiracies were another favorite for Trump and others in the MAGA movement.
Bill Clinton. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island. That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
Oh, when they checked the plane log, Bill Clinton, who is a very good friend of Epstein, he was on the plane about 27 or 28 times. So why did he say 4 times?
Need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
The Epstein list. We haven't heard anything about that one in a while. It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why.
Some, like Kash Patel, now the FBI director, and his deputy, Dan Bongino, built their profiles within the MAGA movement by stoking questions about Epstein.
Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls.
And it's not surprising this story has taken off, as it's got many of the key themes of other conspiracies. Rich elites, film stars, royalty, harm to children, but it's much more grounded in reality than those others. I mean, if you think that in 2016, nearly 50% of Trump voters thought the Pizzagate theory was either true or could be true, a conspiracy that included children kept in a basement of a pizza restaurant when the restaurant in question had no basement, you could see how the Epstein story was always going to take off. And of course, one thing everyone knows about conspiracy theories is that they are impossible to disprove. Every attempt to deny a conspiracy theory can be turned into evidence of the conspirator's genius and power. So of course, when Trump says there's nothing to see here, that doesn't work. But it's not just that Trump has used conspiracy theories to gain attention and support. It's that they are, at a fundamental level, the kind of model for his whole politics. This isn't unique to Trump. Research looking at many countries has found a link between populism and conspiracy theories. It's partly to do with the type of person that's attracted to both of these phenomena. And looking through the research, you can see the same traits and themes coming up again and again. There's something called Generalized Dispositional Distrust. In other words, not trusting experts, academics, the government, media, anything that's a mainstream source of authority. There's a desire for cognitive closure, that is, simple narratives rather than ambiguity, and a Manichean good versus evil worldview. that basically sees everything in black and white terms. Also, populism and conspiracy theories share a basic narrative structure, both framing the world as divided into a small, oppressive and powerful group on top and the innocent, exploited people at the bottom. As one academic explains, conspiracy theories are thus not a curious addition to populist rhetoric, they are rooted in and emerge from the very logic of populism itself. Okay, I want to be clear about what I'm saying here. I'm not saying supporting Trump is the same as thinking the moon landings never happened, that Donald Trump supporters are just sort of stupid or naive or duped and so on. No, what I'm talking about is the way that Trump, his pattern of politics, the way he structures things, the narratives he uses, matches the same that are used in conspiracy theories. It's become his whole style of politics. Whether he's talking directly about conspiracy theories like Obama's birth certificate, or creating new false stories like the 2020 election was stolen, the pattern is always the same. Trump is always presenting himself as the voice of the ignored people, standing up against lying and secretive elites. And he also plays on the same traits that appeal to those who find conspiracy theories convincing. He stokes distrust in mainstream sources of authority.
But they can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
His answers to complex problems are simple and easy to understand.
Build that wall! Build that wall!
And he adopts a good and evil language to disparage his opponents and rivals.
Crooked Hillary Clinton. And believe me, folks, she is crooked.
So this is another reason why Trump is having so much trouble with the Epstein story. It goes against his whole style of politics. It goes against everything that he has come to represent for MAGA.
We're getting flooded with thousands, hundreds of thousands of comments that are very unhappy about this. President Trump was elected primarily to go after the deep state. We want to go after the deep state.
It seems like you think your base is stupid. That's how I feel. I feel like Trump thinks his base is stupid.
Steve Bannon saying if this cover-up continues, 10% of the MAGA base will walk away.
In fact, this could be quite dangerous for Trump because the whole conspiracy populist narrative could turn on him, especially when you consider how much material there is.
It's party time at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago, and among the guests, Jeffrey Epstein. Trump and Epstein can be seen ogling the cheerleaders. Trump points one of them out and says, "She's hot." Then he says something in Epstein's ear that has the financier doubled up in laughter.
Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump.
Trump was a frequent passenger on Epstein's plane, known as the Lolita Express, and Epstein told author Michael Wolff the first time he slept with Melania was on my plane.
In a 2002 interview with New York Magazine, Trump showered praise on Epstein, calling him a, quote, terrific guy, and saying, "It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side."
According to Roger Stone, Trump once said that Epstein's pool was filled with young girls when he visited, telling Stone that it was nice to see Epstein let the neighborhood kids use his pool. The neighborhood kids.
There's one of Epstein's accusers, the late Virginia Giuffre, saying she was recruited while working at Mar-a-Lago as a teenager.
2020, Trump sent well wishes to Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, after a reporter asked him about her being on trial.
I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly.
And there's many more clips we could show at this point. There is a lot of material here, but I guess I should put my cards on the table. So I don't think Epstein was murdered. I also think it's plausible that there was no client list in here. And I don't think Trump is in the files as a kind of breaking the law. But I think his name is probably all over them just because he was, as is well documented, a good friend of Epstein. And so it's just embarrassing for him. And Pam Bondi has told him that. And so he said, I want it dead and buried. So it is a cover-up. But it's only a cover-up because they said they were going to release all this stuff which wouldn't normally be released, right? This is not how these investigations work. You don't just release everything on every file. So yes, it's a cover-up, but it's kind of like a minor one compared to what's actually involved. But the interesting thing for me, or at least the thing I feel I can add on this channel, is what this shows us about the internal contradictions of this type of politics. I think this comment from Alex Jones sums it up.
By coming in and being part of the cover-up, the Trump administration has become part of it.
He says the Trump administration has become part of it. But of course, becoming part of it is the whole point of pursuing political power. You are aiming to become the government. And if you've built your whole movement on castigating elites, questioning the official narratives, what happens when you are the elites, when you have power, and when you are the officials?
It's like, okay, well, that's why people are cynical. People are cynical because you had all this hope for change, and then you realize, like, oh, the same people that are pulling the strings are still pulling the strings.
So there you go. Number 2, a conspiracy style of politics is ultimately self-defeating if every time you gain power, the fact you are in power undermines the fundamental story of your politics. Okay, so what's next? Well, I don't actually think this is fatal for Trump. He's a master of attention, and I'm sure soon we'll be talking about something else. But I think we can see the future difficulties MAGA might face. One thing that's clear from this episode is that MAGA is not just a personality cult. Like all political movements, it's a mix of top-down and bottom-up. And while leaders and influencers might seem, from afar, to be manipulating and controlling what the masses think, ultimately they have to serve the needs, fears, and aspirations of their followers, or they will eventually lose support. I remember the first time I realized this about MAGA was when I watched this clip.
I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine.
When I saw that, it was clear that there were some issues, and worth noting that vaccines often feature in conspiracy theories as well, where MAGA just wouldn't follow Donald Trump. But if it wasn't already clear, this Epstein case makes it more so. MAGA has its own autonomy, and I think we're only going to see that independence increase. And I think a couple of things follow from this. First, MAGA will continue when Trump fades. And 2, when Trump does fade, it's likely that MAGA will become more extreme, especially as the next generation of leaders compete to be in control of it. And this is a kind of weird place to end up, but you can see how in some ways Trump, with his lack of ideology, his transactional nature, I mean, look at him changing position on Ukraine at the moment, is a kind of moderating influence on the extremeness of MAGA, or what MAGA will be once he's gone. Not only does his leadership cover a lot of ideological divides within MAGA, but he adds a kind of charisma and electability that otherwise they would lack. Now, if you're a Trump opponent, the upside of MAGA going more weird and extreme is that they become less electable. But when America has a two-party system and the Democrats are capable of electoral stupidity and so capable of just sort of handing power to whatever bunch of crazies seem to be on the other side, it's kind of hard to know whether this is something we should welcome or fear. Hi, my name is Brennan. If you enjoyed that, please do consider joining me on Substack. It's an email list where I send out a free email every time I make a video. That's quite useful when sometimes the algorithm completely smothers my video because I've made it about Israel. Also, if you sign up for one of the paid tiers, that really helps this project. So thank you very much for the people doing that. You get tips for filmmakers, early access to Q&As, other goodies, as well as a lovely thank you in these credits. So thanks very much.